Today I want to talk about the difference between degree and kind. In the latest video, we talked about how meaning migrates and how in our time it is being inflamed by globalization, technology, and finances. And so when you look at some of the things that are plaguing us or concerning us or crippling us, discouraging us, paralyzing us in some cases, these three factors that are inflaming them, one of the conversations we have to have is, are these different in degree from what they used to be, or have they migrated so far that they're actually a different kind of thing? So I thought we would do some case studies, and we'd actually start in a really fun place. I don't know if you saw the news last week that the spelling bee ran into a little bit of a problem. It was televised on ESPN, and because it's sports entertainment, and which we can talk about too, the meaning migrating there. But there were 8 spellers who they just could not eliminate at the end. And so as the broadcast went on and it got past 11 p.m. Eastern, they made a last minute decision, sort of called an audible on the spot and said, if anybody, whoever was left, however many of you are left after the next 3 rounds, you get to be a champion, right? We're not going to just whittle it down to one final speller. And so the kids had spelled so many words right, and so they had 3 more rounds, and all 8 finalists stayed in, so they had 8 champions. And this, for me, is the perfect example of how things have migrated, how things have changed. Because you may not know this, but the spelling bee isn't just what it used to be with like, oh, that kid, it has a proclivity for spelling words, and he likes to, look in the dictionary and find these obscure words. Technology has changed this immensely. Between analytics, there's actually a program that all these kids use where they found 120,000 words out of the Webster Dictionary, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, that are likely to be used. And these kids study like wild behind the scenes, gearing up for the spelling bee. And so this isn't just like, oh, there's this random kid from Connecticut and she's great at spelling. Like, this is a different kind of spelling bee. It has migrated. It's not just a different, by degree, I'm thinking that it's a different type. It's a different kind of spelling bee, that globalization, technology, and finances have changed this immensely. And so that's just a fun example, but it affects so many areas of our life. I mentioned farming. So farming, has changed radically in the last 50 years. And so between agribusiness and seed companies and monocrops, it is big business, and it's impacted by globalization, because many of the crops are grown not for just, to make it to your grocery store, but are actually supplying. And this is why the tariff thing that's happening right now and the sanctions with other countries is so vital. So that's globalization. It's impacted by technology. You couldn't farm that way without technology. It's unnatural. And the finances, obviously. We mentioned the military. So if you look at the military and that stat that I threw out, you can contrast the celebrations that we just had for the 75th anniversary of D-Day at Normandy with the fact that the last year of Obama's presidency, we dropped 228 bombs in 17 countries. So the military has changed, not by degree, but by kind. It's a different kind of military. What we call war has changed so radically that, and now we have the war on terror, obviously, which is an endless war because you never know when terror is defeated. And it has us in all of these countries, and possibly 2 more coming up in China and Iran. So warfare, or the military, has changed so radically. It is different from that World War II generation we call the greatest generation. It is different, not in degree, but in kind. It's a different kind of military, different kind of war. You see it in everything from like Marxism. I see people who try and stick up for like actual orthodox Marxism or socialism. It gets thrown out with these old understandings that are like codified in a previous era. But if you actually look at neo-Marxism and the conversation happening there and democratic socialism, these are different from what you read in the history books, not just in degree, but they're a different kind of approach. And so it affects our politics. Our politics are the same way. With the 2020 election coming up, you're going to see it over and over again. Look at how globalization, technology, and finances are impacting who gets to run, how they run, how the polling is done. So many things are affected by it that politics are not what they used to be. They're not just different in degree, I'm arguing, but in kind. It's a different kind of political atmosphere with the 24-hour news cycle and so many other factors. And that's the technology element. And I'm going to suggest that our Christianities are impacted by this. That what we're experiencing with the fracturing, not only in our culture, but in our denominations and in our faith, that the different Christianities we see are not just different in degree, they're actually different kinds of Christianities. And so the fundamentalism that you may see, like say in a Jerry Falwell or a Franklin Graham, are so radically different from what you might experience at a non-political church or a left-leaning church or some other mainline manifestation of the church that you could barely recognize it. And you think, how could these be the same thing? Like, how are these just different degrees of Christianity? But Christianity is like Jesus said, pray that you might be one. No, these are actually different kinds of Christianities. And I'm growing more and more comfortable with this. I crossed this threshold about 5 years ago, and the longer I have watched it, the more comfortable I get saying, no, that's just a different kind of Christianity. We're not different in degree. We're actually doing different things. We motivated by different things. We start in different places, and we're hoping to end up in different places. And so that's a reality that's impacted by globalization, by technology, and by the finances. So I would love if you have any examples of this, maybe from some activity or hobby or niche or profession that you are in. I think that you see it everywhere, from the spelling bee and this sort of funny story that happened in the news last week, through the impact on our agriculture and our environment, so our military situation, our politics, and our faith. Everything is migrating. It is changing rapidly, not incrementally, but exponentially. This is being inflamed by globalization, technology, and finances. And I'm going to propose that one of the things you have to mark is, when does it migrate so far that it's no longer the same thing as it used to be? That it's not just different in degree, it's become something different in kind or type. Let me know what you think. I would love if you have any examples. Look forward to your feedback.